My name is Anthony Corley and I'm 65 years old. Also a recovering alcoholic and compulsive gambler. Didn't really know my father. He committed suicide when I was 3 years old, and so my mum battled on to look after 4 of us kids, and eventually couldn't manage us. So she put us into a boys' home, me and my brother, and it was there that I actually experienced sexual abuse. Yeah, so what happened from that is that I came out of that boys' home, which I was never the same again, and by the time I was 12 I was already drinking, and which set a course for me that led to a long period of drinking and being in and out of institutions and jail, and eventually homelessness. So during that homelessness I spent a great deal of time in and out of men's night shelters and places like St Vincent de Paul's, and then there was the occasions where I had to sleep in toilets and behind bushes, and eventually from there I ended up in a rehab run by the Salvation Army, and I made quite a few attempts to get myself sober and clean, and I couldn't quite hang on, and I couldn't quite admit that I had an alcohol problem. Even though that I was homeless, I still didn't think I had a problem. So in regards to my alcoholism, that started at 12 years old. I started to drink to bury the pain of what had happened to me, and I started to get hooked on pot. And from that pot, I discovered gambling, and the gambling took over, and before I knew it, I was stuck in that cycle of drinking, drugging and gambling, and I would get my pension and it would go within hours of getting my pension, and then I'd have no money to pay the men's hostel, to sleep for the night, and that crawl behind these bushes, that was a certain spot that homeless people knew, and I would sleep there. And yeah, so I was in Salvation Army rehab in Adelaide, and it was called the Bridge program, and it was there that I was introduced to, I guess, a Christian base. My journey has been one of many relapses, and it was always through the gambling that took me back, and I would gamble first, and then I would think, well, what's the point? And I would drink, and then I would also take drugs, and I could never quite get out of that cycle. And I made 2 attempts to come back, and I couldn't do it. But on the 9th of December, something magical really happened, is that I had a moment of clarity, and for the first time in my recovery I could actually see what I had become. So part of my healing came through a mediation with my abusers, and a part of that was I came to a place of forgiveness, and the way I came to that forgiveness is that my sponsor, who in my recovery had talked to me about forgiveness, and it was about that forgiveness wasn't for him, but it was for me, to allow myself permission to move on from that pain. The other part of my recovery is through the 12 steps we're asked to make amends and give back to society, and my thing today is that I actually mentor and sponsor people. I make living amends, and I try to do the right thing today, and I like to think that I'm a Christian in recovery, and I never wanted to be a Sunday Christian. I wanted to be someone that would reach out on any day of the week and say, hey, do you need a hand? Because that's what I'm about. Someone reached out and helped me, and so for me it's about returning that favour. So my name is Tony Corley, and that was my journey, and it continues.